Hello, my name is Bill Zebedee, and I'd like to welcome you to the Jesus in the Movies and on TV series. This series is dedicated to my mother-in-law, Ann Thomas, who passed away in September 2020. I am basing this series in part on workshops Ann conducted around the world for almost 20 years. I'd also like to dedicate this series to my father, William Wellington Zebedee II, of whom I am named after. Dad passed in February 2021. Enjoy this series. Thank you very much.
In this, the fourth episode of Actors Who Played Jesus in the Movies and on TV, we'll take a look at what Richard Askoff called the epic Jesus from the 1960s. We can't start the epic Jesus without talking about King of Kings, directed by Nicholas Ray in 1961 and starring heartthrob Jeffrey Hunter as Christ. This film, officially approved by Pope John XXIII, from Imagining the Divine Jesus and Christ by Lloyd Baugh, was the first full-length movie about Christ since the 1920s, from Jesus in the Movies by Ken Beck. There were a lot of negative comments laid against Hunter as Jesus. As a Star Trek fan, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Hunter was Captain Christopher Pike in the pilot of the original Star Trek series. Trekkie geeking out done. Baugh said that Hunter was clearly a strategic error. And in The Real Jesus, Reverend Michael Morris said, Hunter gave a noble but passive performance. Morris also went as far as to say Hunter was the ultimate Aryan to grace the screen as Christ. Being the first movie about Jesus in the 60s, of course it was going to face controversy. What some found most appalling about King of Kings was that Hunter was too hairy. Yes, that's what I said. Many reports of the time say that test audiences were offended by the hairy actor's chest and armpits. So, the scenes where Christ was bare-chested, the crucifixion, had to be reshot after his hair was shaved off. Apparently, according to Anton Karl Kozlowy in How to Create a Hollywood Christ Figure, Sacred Storytelling as Applied Theology, people referred to Hunter as a teenage Jesus, although he was 35 at the time of release. This was, according to Kozlowy, attributed to author Ray Bradbury. Barabbas was filmed in Italy and released in 1961, where Roy Manganiello plays Jesus. Jesus is only seen a few times during this movie. Obviously, it centers more around the man whose life was saved at the Passover choice. The movie follows Barabbas' life after the crucifixion. The next year, Pontius Pilate, or Pontius Pilate, was released. Filmed in Italy, based on the Gospel of John that led to the events around the Passion of Jesus, it starred John Drew Barrymore in dual roles of Judas and Jesus. Christ is only shot in the abstract. Il Vangelo secondo Matteo, the Gospel according to St. Matthew, from 1964, is seen by many as staying closest to the Scripture. Filmed in Italy, this classic stars Enrique Irizocchi as Jesus. The director, Pier Paolo Pasolini, according to the Internet Movie Database, used non-professional actors, including his own mother, in the role of Mary. Pasolini, who dedicated the movie to Pope John XXIII, is an admitted atheist and is quoted on Goodreads.com as saying, quote, I am an unbeliever who has a nostalgia for a belief, end quote. Eric Gonowan, in Jesus in Film, Representations, Misrepresentation, and Denial of Jesus' Agony in Apocryphal Gospel, says, instead of presenting Jesus in a long hair and beard, Pasolini's Jesus has a modern haircut. And then there's The Greatest Story Ever Told, where actor Max von Sydow played Christ. This was a $20 million epic, almost 190-minute film that featured a number of star actors, including John Wayne. The Duke apparently couldn't get his one line, truly this was the Son of God, right. There were reported to be multiple retakes. As for von Sydow, Len Rehe and the Many Faces of Jesus, screen portrayals of Christ create an intriguing mosaic, described him as, quote, sporting a delicately groomed beard and piercing blue eyes, brings a sensitivity and nobility to the role of Jesus. despite an unimaginative script." End quote. However, Tom Aitken, in The Greatest Story Never Told, wasn't so polite, saying von Sydow had, quote, "a hangdog expression emphasized by his straight, lifeless black hair and beard." End quote. Gerald E. Forshee, in American Religious and Biblical Spectaculars, says, quote, "Surely Christ was not the cold, humorless fish von Sydow makes him, in his godly, solid, almost stolid portrayal." End quote. As for the movie itself, Gregory Cahill Kareem Allen, in The World Made Cinematic, The Representation of Jesus in Cinema, calls it, quote, "a tremendous flop." End quote. Finally, in Hollywood and the Catholic Church, the image of Roman Catholicism in American movies, authors Lester and Barbara Kaiser say this movie turned the story of Jesus, quote, "into a prolonged version of Hollywood Squares." End quote. Colin Blakely brings his acting to the role of Jesus in Son of Man from 1969, based on a play by Dennis Potter. Personally, I found this a great play enactment of the Jesus character. Son of Man aired April 1969 on Channel 4 of the British Broadcasting Company. There is one scene I loved. After preaching to his followers, Jesus looks up at the cross he was leaning against and says, "You should have stayed a tree." A unique way of doing foreshadowing. Author Eric Ganawan said Potter's version of Jesus was a harsh person in look and voice. Although this is from 1969, I would actually categorize it under Askoff's The Human Jesus of the 1980s, which will be episode 7 of this series, as Potter made Jesus more like a common man. This ends the epic Jesus, as described by Richard Askoff. Next episode, we will look at what Askoff called the countercultural Jesus, but what I'm calling hippie Jesus. As always, remember to like and comment on this video and share with your friends.